All right, let's dig into something pretty wild today.
Okay.
What if the universe, at its most basic level, isn't quite what we picture?
How so?
Like, what if just looking at something actually changes it, not just physically, but conceptually?
Hmm.
And what if these really deep quantum ideas could help us understand, well, everything? Human intentions, social stuff, even ethics.
That's a big leap, but yeah, that's where this thinking can take you.
Welcome to the deep dive. This
Mm.
is where we take your sources and really pull out the key insights.
Get right to the heart of it.
Exactly. Today we're diving into Karen Barad's book, Meeting the Universe Halfway, Quantum Physics and the Entanglement of Matter and Meaning. It's quite a title.
It is, and the ideas are just as significant.
Our mission here is to explore how Barad uses quantum physics, specifically Niels Bohr's ideas, to, well, introduce a completely new way of seeing reality, knowledge, our place in it all.
Yeah, it's pretty radical.
We'll unpack her agential realism framework, this key idea of interaction. It challenges so many assumptions.
It really does. Those old dualisms, subject-object, nature-culture, she pushes back hard.
And offers a new take on causality, existence itself. So yeah, get ready for maybe a few aha moments
Yeah,
that could shift how you see the world.
definitely. And Barad starts us off with this really tense historical moment. September 1941,
Right.
German physicist Werner Heisenberg visits his old mentor, Niels Bohr.
In Nazi-occupied Copenhagen, the tension is palpable just thinking about it.
Exactly. And this meeting, it was never really resolved, what was said, what the intentions were. It becomes this dramatic backdrop for these huge philosophical debates.
In Michael Frayn's play, Copenhagen, it just jumps right into that ambiguity, doesn't it?
It does. Frame basically suggests Heisenberg's reasons for being there are fundamentally unknowable.
Like, not just because we lost the records, but because uncertainty is baked into how humans think.
That's his angle. He connects it to the uncertainty principle, but for human motives. And he asks, if we can't truly know why someone does something,
Then how can we judge them? Does morality lose its footing?
that's the implication Frame explores. It's powerful drama.
But Barad steps in here with a really crucial point, a distinction.
Yes, and this is key. She argues Frame, maybe like many people, conflates Bohr's core idea with Heisenberg's.
Okay.
For Barad, Bohr isn't about Heisenberg's uncertainty. He's about complementarity or indeterminacy.
Uncertainty versus indeterminacy. What's the difference there?
Sounds subtle.
It's actually a massive difference. Heisenberg's uncertainty is epistemic. It's about a limit on what we can know. Like, there are pre-existing values, but we just can't know them both perfectly at once.
Yeah, knowledge problem.
Right. But Bohr's indeterminacy is ontological. It's about existence itself. It says properties don't have definite values before a measurement. They become determinate through the measurement.
Whoa. Okay, so it's not just that we can't know something that's already there.
Exactly. It's that the there-ness, the definite property, emerges from the interaction, the measurement set up.
That is a huge difference. So Bohr's complementarity, it's about how certain concepts like position and momentum require mutually exclusive experimental setups to even be defined.
Like, you can set up your experiment to precisely define position.
But that very setup makes it impossible to simultaneously define momentum with the same precision, not because it's hidden, but because the conditions for defining one preclude defining the other.
So the definition itself is tied to the physical arrangement.
Precisely. And funnily enough, it was Bohr, not Heisenberg, who really wrestled for decades with what quantum theory meant beyond physics for human thought, self-awareness.
And these weren't just abstract debates for him either, right?
Yeah.
He was involved in the atom bomb project.
Yes, which underscores the intense real-world ethical weight behind these scientific ideas. They weren't just lab games.
Absolutely. So, okay, these quantum foundations set the stage for Barad's agential realism. You said it's a non-representationalist realism. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. Representationalism is the common view that our theories or words sort of mirror or represent a reality that's just out there, independent of us.
Like taking a picture of a landscape. The picture represents the landscape, but doesn't change it.
Right. Agential realism throws that out. Barad says our practices experimenting, theorizing, observing aren't passive representations. They are agencies that actively participate in producing reality.
So the knower and the known aren't separate things.
Exactly. They emerge together. Objects, subjects, matter itself, they're co-constituted through these dynamic practices. It challenges all those divides. Object, subject, knower, known, nature, culture.
Word, world.
All of them. She sees them as artificial cuts we make. not fundamental divisions in reality.
Okay, so if things aren't pre-existing separate entities,
Hmm.
how do they relate? This brings us to interaction, her special term.
Yes, interaction. She coined it specifically to contrast with interaction.
Interaction implies two or more things already exist, then they affect each other.
Correct. Interaction, however, emphasizes the mutual constitution of entangled agencies. Things don't exist as neatly defined individuals before they interact. Their boundaries and properties are enacted through the interaction.
So the entities emerge from the relationship, rather than the relationship happening between pre-existing entities.
You've got it. And in this view, phenomena aren't just things we see in labs.
Right.
Phenomena are the basic units of reality. They are these dynamic, entangled reconfigurations of the world that arise from interactions.
It's a very dynamic, interconnected view of reality.
Yeah.
Everything is constantly being made and remade.
Constantly. And this leads her to propose a specific way of thinking, a diffractive methodology.
Okay, diffraction, like light waves bending around an obstacle.
Exactly, that physical phenomenon. When waves, water, sound, light hit an obstacle, they bend, spread out, and when they overlap, they interfere, creating patterns.
Like ripples in a pond crossing each other.
Precisely. The physics involves superposition. Now, Barad takes this concept.
And turns it into a research method. How does that work?
She contrasts it with reflection. Reflection is like holding up a mirror looking for sameness, how one thing represents another, assuming they are separate to begin with. Diffraction, as a methodology, means reading insights through one another, paying attention to differences and how they are produced and how they matter, how different ideas or phenomena interfere and create new patterns when considered together.
So instead of looking for reflections, you're looking at the patterns created by interference, by difference.
Yes. It's about understanding entanglement and the effects of difference, rather than assuming separation and looking for resemblance.
That seems like a powerful lens. Let's apply it. How does this view change our understanding of something like the classic two-slit experiment?
Ah, the quintessential quantum mystery.
Right, particles act like waves, create an interference pattern, even one by one. But if you try to detect which slit they go through,
Poof! The interference pattern vanishes. You get two distinct clumps, like you'd expect from particles.
now Heisenberg might say the detector disturbed the particle, messing up its path.
That was his interpretation, the uncertainty principle disturbance. But Bohr, and Barad follows him here, says, no, that's not quite it. It's about complementarity, about definability. The experimental setup required to get which path information is mutually exclusive with the setup required to observe the interference pattern.
You can set it up for one or the other, but not both simultaneously.
Exactly. The world isn't hiding information. The conditions necessary to define one property make it impossible to define the other in that specific phenomenon. The phenomenon is the entanglement of the particle and the apparatus.
So the choice of measurement actively shapes what could become real or definable.
Precisely. And this gets even stranger with quantum eraser experiments.
Right. These are the ones that seem to defy time. You can apparently erase the which path information after the particle should have already chosen its path.
And if you successfully erase that information, making it fundamentally unknowable,
The interference pattern comes back.
the interference pattern comes back. It's stunning. It strongly supports Bohr's indeterminacy and suggests our neat ideas about a fixed past causing a determined future just don't hold at this level.
It implies the past and future are somehow co-created, iteratively reworked through these interactions.
That's Barad's reading. The past isn't set in stone. It's constantly being reconfigured by present interactions.
Mind-bending. Okay, let's try to ground this a bit. How does this play out with something like, say, seeing atoms using a scanning tunneling microscope, an STM?
Well, first off, Barad stresses that seeing with an STM isn't like passive looking. It's an active process and achievement.
More like touching than seeing.
Very much so, like feeling an object to build a mental image. And think about Don Eigler's work at IBM.
Moving individual atoms,
Yeah.
spelling out IBM.
Exactly. And apparently you could hear these little thunks as the atoms were nudged across the surface.
Hearing an atom move? That's incredible.
Isn't it? But here's the crucial part for Barad's argument. Imaging the atoms and manipulating them are complementary modes for the STM.
Mutually exclusive.
In a sense, yes. In imaging mode, the atom is part of the object being scanned. In manipulation mode, it effectively becomes part of the microscope tip, part of the agency of observation.
So the boundary between the tool and the object isn't fixed. It shifts depending on the interaction.
Precisely. It perfectly illustrates her point that these categories aren't inherent but are enacted through specific material engagements.
And sometimes those material engagements involve cheap cigars. Tell me about the Stern-Gerlach experiment story.
Yes. A fantastic anecdote. Early 20th century, Stern and Gerlach are trying to demonstrate space quantization, a key quantum idea, by seeing how silver atoms behave in a magnetic field.
And it was a tough experiment.
Incredibly fiddly. They expected to see traces of the atoms on a detector plate, but the traces were initially invisible. Legend has it, Otto Stern was smoking a cheap cigar nearby.
Okay, don't tell me the smoke.
The sulfur compounds in the cigar smoke reacted with the silver deposits on the plate, making the traces visible. Their success literally depended on the cigar smoke.
No way. So a completely random, everyday thing smoking was essential for the scientific discovery.
It wasn't just random, it was part of the apparatus. Barad uses this to show how seemingly external material practices, even things tied to, say, class or gender norms of the time.
Like who smoked cheap cigars back then?
Exactly. These things are entangled with the production of scientific knowledge. The object, the atomic trace, and the subject, the observing scientist, were co-produced with the help of cigar smoke. It wasn't separate.
That really drives home the entanglement idea. It's not just atoms and apparatus. It's everything involved.
Everything. Which leads us to think about boundaries differently everywhere, not just in physics labs, like with bodies.
Right, you mentioned the brittle star example. These sea creatures that are eyes instead of just having eyes.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Their skeleton, made of calcite crystals, is their visual system. It focuses light.
So their body is the optical device.
Exactly. It shows how bodies and their boundaries aren't these fixed, separate containers. They are dynamic configurations, always entangled with their environment and their abilities, in this case, visualizing. The body is an apparatus.
And this applies to human bodies and technology too, like ultrasound.
Definitely. Barad analyzes ultrasound and obstetrics. She argues the transducer isn't just a window onto the womb, it's a prosthetic device.
That actively materializes bodies and redraws boundaries. How so?
Well, the images produced contribute to constructing the fetus as a subject, the baby, the kid, often assigned a gender. This imaging practice can reframe the pregnant person primarily as the maternal environment.
Potentially diminishing their own subjectivity and agency in the process.
That's the concern. The technology interacts with social norms, medical practices, and individual bodies to produce particular kinds of subjects and relationships with real ethical consequences. It's not just seeing, it's making.
Wow, that technological interaction has deep social effects. Does this extend to larger social structures?
Absolutely. Barad draws on ethnographic work, like Leela Fernandez's study of a jute mill in India.
What did Fernandez find?
She showed that categories like class, gender, community aren't static labels applied to workers. They are actively, iteratively produced and tangled up with each other through the daily work, the interaction of humans and machines on the shop floor.
So the rhythm of the machines, the physical space, the workers' social identities, they all shape each other constantly.
Yes. The spatiality of capitalism, the power dynamics, are materialized in these ongoing embodied contests. It's not just an abstract structure, it's lived and produced through material interactions.
This brings us back to Barad's core philosophical move, onto epistemology. Knowing and being are inseparable.
That's the heart of it. You can't separate ontology, what exists, from epistemology, how we know. We don't stand apart from the world to know it.
We know because we are part of the world's ongoing becoming.
Exactly. We are of the world, entangled within it. Our knowing is a way the world makes itself intelligible to parts of itself.
And then she adds ethics into the mix. Ethico onto epistemology.
Right. If knowing and being are inseparable, then ethics can't be separated either. Ethics isn't just a human layer added on top. It's inherent in the material entanglements of the world.
How does that work? Justice written into matter.
It suggests that our responsibilities arise directly from these entanglements. Because our actions, our knowledge practices are part of the world's becoming, they're inherently ethical. Responsibility isn't just about individual intent, it's about the consequences of these interactions, how we cut things together and apart.
So responsibility is itself an entangled affair.
Precisely. It arises from the way the world and its inhabitants are constantly reconfigured through these interactions we're all involved in.
Okay, so we've traveled quite a distance. from Quantum Physics Mysteries in Copenhagen.
To Barad's agential realism, this idea that reality is dynamic, entangled, made through interactions.
We've seen how this challenges basic ideas about objects, observers, even cause and effect.
And how it reframes everything from scientific experiments to bodily boundaries and ethical responsibility.
It really asks us to rethink our place in the world, not as separate observers, but as active participants in its continuous creation.
A profound shift.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If, as Barad says, knowledge is a matter of part of the world making itself intelligible to another part,
And our understanding, our actions, are literally part of the world materializing.
then what kind of new responsibilities, what new ethical considerations emerge when you think about your own deep dives into information, into experiences, as active ways you're participating in shaping what the world becomes?